Welcome to Real Estate Dads, where we talk about the intersection of dadding and real estating at the same time. Today we have Dan Riddle on, an engineer who has engineered his life and everything about it to be successful in W-2, family, raising a family, having a great relationship, an outstanding daughter, and a great partnership with his wife, and some very successful real estate investments over the past 20 years. So really excited to have Dan on here. Thanks for being here, sir.
Great to be with you guys. So where do we want to start?
I guess just first question, tell us about your professional business, and then we're going to go into just your family life right after that.
Okay. I went pretty well normal path on things. Went through school, got decent grades, went to college. I first started in engineering, but after about 2 years of it, I was making my way through it, but I wasn't happy. It just wasn't me. And I sat down with a long-term family friend who's very experienced engineer, and we talked through things and all. And I discovered I liked working more with people than just things. That's the normal split between a technical career and more business oriented. So I switched to a business degree. I explored several options. I ended up what I call the close cousin of industrial engineering. It's called production operations management. There's a lot of crossover between there. So it built off of some of my math and engineering start. And it's something I've done ever since. So I'm in the middle of business systems, running, scheduling factories, working through issues, making sure we make deliveries, all that stuff, the supply chain production control world. And most of my years I've been under the title of a master scheduler. And so it's been very challenging, but very rewarding also. And that was great. So I first got out of school in 1982. Sort of side story here, sort of funny in a way. Sharon and I didn't meet till later after school. We were both out of college. But technically, we were in high schools that played football against each other. So there were times at football games we would have been on the same field. We didn't know each other. But then also we graduated from University of North Texas here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Denton. We both graduated in the same ceremony in 1982. We didn't meet each other till 87. so from that is like, that's sort of, I guess something was meant to be. It just saw this crisscrossing. But we went from there. I started in a small company, worked there 2 years to learn as much as I could, and I was ready to move on. But then I got this notion, I wanted to get this MBA and get another degree. So I had started part-time. But I worked there one more year, total of 3 years there, quit my job, went back to grad school full time to finish an MBA. So tell most people I enjoyed coming out of school broke so much the first time I did it twice. So that's where I ended up. Sharon and I met, married, all the stuff there, and it was great. We started by that time. Actually, when I came out of grad school, that same old engineering friend of ours walked my resume all over the place at Bell Helicopter until he found a spot that fit me and all. And that's when I first became a master scheduler and all. And it's been a great time since. I'm very lucky. Most people in the defense aerospace industry will bounce around half a dozen different places during their career or more and all. I've only worked for two. I started out with Bell. There was a major reduction in 89. I had to leave. I got on with a subsidiary of Boeing and worked for them there for 16 years. And then about the time, we'll get in the real estate side here in a second, but about the time I was starting in the real estate looking for an alternative path and what my end of career might look like, I got a call back from Bell Helicopter, an old mentor there that said, I've got to rebuild a function here. I need help. Would you come back? That was in 2005. And I'm still there. So it's been a blast. I've enjoyed I've gotten a lot of training in business systems, how they work. In fact, my master's was emphasizing management information systems, but from an operations standpoint. And I've been able to do stuff that I never envisioned doing. I've scheduled so many different kind of aircraft, I can't even name them all probably. It's just been a blast and I've kept doing it. And real estate was a whole nother alternative. And I'll just go back to where that happened. In my mind, I experienced The aftermath. I don't like to use it a lot, but this really stems out of 9/11. That is a day that everybody remembers where they were. And I'm not going to talk about the atrocities. We all know that. And it's a very sad event. But the aftermath of it made me open my mind, because about a month after we got the word down, all our parts were going to Boeing and aircraft. We were a subsidiary supplying only them. They reduced their production line by 50%, half. Never seen that ever before. And so I was a manager at the time, had 11 people. I was just trying to give some of them the dignity, because I knew when they said half, that probably meant half for us. And that's what it ended up being. 6 of my people had to go out the door. And in the beginning, I didn't know what was happening to me either. As it turns out, I kept a job. They downsized me back into an individual role. That's fine. I could do that. I was thankful to have it. But at that point, I was thinking about, and this is where family starts coming in. I looked for other opportunities initially because I didn't know my fate. And there were some potential ones in the Georgia area with Lockheed. And I was sort of tempted there, and said, hey, I even saw some jobs that maybe I could get to second level manager. But then I started talking about my family and thinking about it. I had a 5-year-old daughter. You guys can probably equate. 5-year-old daughter. Everybody she cared about, all her friends and everything, was right here in the area where we live. Both sets of grandparents were in the area. All the friends and family, the people we knew, were here. And I decided, I can't do that. I can't go halfway across the country and take my family where they don't even know where they're going to be and impact their lives just to get the next level. So I started thinking about, what else could I do? What do I want my end of career to look like? Where do I want to be? And I cogitated on that a while. And it was about 2 years after we passed 9/11, Boeing sold us to another company. And within a month, I knew what that company was like. They were going to want to be as cheap as possible, as economic as possible, cut any excess they could find. And because I'd been in management before, my pay was above the pay grade I was sitting in. So in 2003, I just decided, I got a plan, because sooner or later, they're going to look at my pay and say, that's too much, and I'll be gone. So at that point, it got real. I started thinking about it because of the impact I saw. What I really came through in a nutshell, you can lose your job any moment and be totally beyond your control. You don't have control of everything. And going the corporate route and working for a company, that's a great thing. You get good benefits, all of that. But there's a flip side, that you could be cut at any time, totally out of control, and not be in a good place. And that's when I got serious and I started looking, and that's what led us ultimately to real estate. So we started investing in single family houses in 2005. We did that all the way up. 2019, we sold our last one. And we got into multifamily because we wanted to scale up. And multifamily we started in 2015. Once we proved it, every time a rent house came up, we'd just sell it. I said, we're going to put our money here. This is where we're going. And we're very happy with that. And the fun part is my daughter followed that process all the way through the whole time, from our beginning to our multifamily. At one point when she was in high school, we paid her as a contractor to help Sharon take care of property management, pull all the taxes, paperwork together each year. And we pay her to help with the business. So she has worked in the business. She's been part of it. And just another word about her. Her name's Nora. It's our only daughter, our only child. She never was left behind. She wanted to go anywhere we were going. So she toured houses. She went through things. She saw things. And it's been a blast. So that's sort of the background getting me to here. And we love where we are and where we're going.
How old is Nora?
So how old is Nora now? There we go.
She is turned 28 years last month. 28 years old. Went all the way through school, college, and she works in Washington, D.C. And I can really be proud of this. She's been out since she graduated in 2018, got her first job up in D.C. in 2019, And as right now, she makes more than I do in my W-2 job.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome, right?
I can't knock that.
You know, the beauty that what I really love hearing about, your path in this is that you actually have income that's not just real estate income.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, we interview a lot of people who are, in command of, exclusively a real estate on business of some kind. But, the other side to this industry that we're all in is that, when the markets kind of dip down and we're not making as much money on transactions and fees, where's the other money coming from? So when I hear someone who has a W-2, I go, that's great, because it gives you an ability to have a stable income and also put it into the growth market of real estate.
Sure. I mean, that's just absolutely what you need to be doing down the road, whether you're managing a portfolio of stocks and bonds or finding other alternative ways to make money. You need to do that, but you need to build a foundation before. And that's why I still work in the W-2, is to support us as we move through this. If tomorrow my company had a major layoff and I didn't have a job, we're in a position where we could continue and we'd survive and we'd be okay. But I'm trying to get us to a better place. Right? We have a target right now, 2 more years, and I'll be ready to step away from this aerospace job. It's been quite a ride, a lot of fun. We've some special accomplishments on the way. I didn't rise to be the CEO, but there's another term for a master scheduler. This is something known in the industry. Master scheduler is someone who spends their entire career trying to get into something else. And that's because you get good at that one thing. They want you to stay there. They need you there.
Is master scheduler like project management?
It's involved at times. I had to get in a big process. We completely replaced our business system, turned it on in 2013. A complete replacement of all of it. They gave me copies of the aircraft schedules that we use. We call them line schedules, but aircraft schedules, and say, Dan, go down the hill on that project, figure out how we put this in that system, and we want it to line up perfectly. That was my task. I had no idea how many moving parts there were today, but I figured it out. And at the end of the day, when we turned on our system, most people in the groups were working on just transitioning their data from one system to another. For the aircraft side, it didn't exist. The way the data was put in there did not exist in the old system. We had to build it up from scratch, and we had to do that. I took a team of 6 people. I worked with them for almost a year. Every month we went through a training exercise. Let's go do a test run, basically, and put this in. And at the end of the day, I can say I'd always wanted to prove this. We've always been told, humans are not perfect, and we're not. But I proved that if you work right and you have the right discipline and focus in a way and work together, you can get perfect results. At the end of the day, to turn that on, we had something like 668,000 data points that had to be dead on perfect. And I work with that team, and if we had a blip in one of the test runs, we'd fix it. We'd say, okay, let's change this, let's change that, so it doesn't happen again. And at the end of the day, they implemented it. I was just back coordinating at that point. They implemented it, and I had to train each person one-on-one how to do all the detail. But basically, they hit all 668,000 plus data points perfectly, what we call 100% first pass yield. Nailed it. Now, we had a lot of other problems with the system in other places, but it wasn't us. We nailed our part. and that just...
You sound like an engineer.
Agreed. And that, and of course, I'm around engineers all the time. I do a lot of work now in development programs, new things being designed, and you can't be around them without picking up some of the lingo anyway. So that's why I've enjoyed it so much, but it's not forever.
On the corporate side, I've been in real estate, since I got out of college, and, I really would have liked to have stayed in the W-2 side. Actually, sometimes I say that when I look in the rearview mirror, really probably not. But
watch what you ask.
Well, what I was going to say was, the exchange that most of us have in working for a corporation is that there's security. You're not an entrepreneur. You're giving up kind of some larger goals to have stability and work for another company. And then you find out that stability is not always there. The companies have layoffs, they do things, and and you're like, well, wait a minute, I gave up on these other bigger plans to do this, and then you find out
I had
you can
a lot of fun one time with Boeing. When I was with Boeing, they brought in master scheduler type people from all over the corporation, big conference up in Seattle area. I was loving it there, and we were going through it, meeting people. All this was just terrific and all that. And it was a week, about day 3, they come in and say, well, the schedulers for the A1 program, is a military program, A1 program, aren't here today. They had to go back because their program just got canceled. So it's like, that can be brutal and all. But fortunately in the industry, when someone's losing a contract, there's usually somebody else getting one. So that's why a lot of people move around. For me, I got my one stint in management, and I liked it to a degree, though I thought it was going to kill me at one point. And when I came back to Bell Helicopter the second time, I was wanting to climb up and get in a management job and all that, and it didn't happen. And I was a little disappointed in that. But a little bit later, they came back. This is really sort of crazy. At one point, they moved us under a vice president of finance. Never in my career have I ever worked for finance. And I'm like, what the heck are they doing? This doesn't make any sense. And all this. I get over there. That guy challenged us and says, I want a 10-year forecast put in this test box of our business system for all aircraft, and I want you to be able to do that. And I'm sitting there saying, well, crud, that is more complicated than turning this system on, trying to do all that and stuff. And I knew how to do it, but I wasn't sure we could pull it off. And we went and did it, and we did pull it off. And that year, the vice president of finance bumped me up to what we call a principal master scheduler. That's the top. I can't go any higher. But guess what happened then? I got some profit sharing benefits in that category. The same thing that managers get. Do you think I wanted to mess with being a manager and all the other effort to that anymore? No way. It's like, I got the benefits, and I get to be a subject matter expert and work with people and do things every day that make a difference. And I'm not into the politics and all the other stuff you get imposed on you when you're in management. So
let's make sure that we cut over a little bit to your real estate and your family. And because all this is really fascinating, and so much stuff about even engineering that I've never really understood prior. Okay, so now working with your wife, and you guys buy houses and you buy multifamily. So tell us about your portfolio and the growth of that.
Well, we started out strictly, as many, I would say probably the majority of people who go into real estate investing typically go into single family. And that's what we started with. And in 2005, we went and got trained, did a lot of stuff, ready to do it. And we had said back then, maybe someday we'll look at apartments, but let's just start where it's easiest to start as far as financially. And so that's what we did. We went and started finding houses. And as I said, my daughter did not want to ever be left behind. I think there was only one time when she was 3 years old, we left her at my mom's house, but she wanted to go. And she was there with us all the way, looking at houses. She'd walk through houses with me. And after she started that about 9 or 10, she could walk in and tell most average adults more about what was wrong with their house than they knew. And, she picked up on it. She loved it. She did it. And one good story we had, this is back in 08 or 09, I think about 09, at a house in another part of the Dallas area. And we'd go out, we were trying to get a renter. And so we go out and put out the little directional signs on corners to get people to come see the house and all that stuff. Well, after doing that a few times, I wasn't always the one that put the sign up. I would drive typically. And for a while, Sharon would be the one to put the sign up. But at one point, our daughter got a little bigger. She could do it too. I had a little 2.5 pound sledgehammer that was just about the right weight to be able to pound a sign in and she'd do it. And we're in this town and we go up a corner. We had done it here many times. And she gets out of the car and starts walking over the corner. She knew where to put it and goes over there. And Sharon got out of the car too. I was just sitting in the car. And about the time Nora got out close to the street, closer to the curb, this car comes up. I think it was a Honda Civic. And it just stops in the middle of the street. And this teenage kid jumps out with a gorilla mask on. And we're like, oh my God, and it startled her a little bit. And I started getting out of the car to come up there. But Sharon scared those kids to death because I was actually worried. She was starting to step out into the street. And I'm like, you don't want to go out there at all. That kid jumped back in that car so fast. And they just tore out and sped off. And they didn't ever come close to our daughter. And the joke of the family was that she became a gorilla mama out there. And when we went and did that stuff, sometimes she'd wear a checkered flannel shirt and stuff, and all that stuff. And it was just, it's bothered us quite seriously, of course. But it's just a great story. And it's like, she's going to protect her daughter. And it's like, I was afraid she'd hurt somebody and all. So those are the kind of things that would happen and all. And I can remember one time Nora walked in the house with us, and it was a little mildew. And Dad, this house smells. And I was like, okay, we're going to look quick and we'll get out of here. But that has just been so wonderful with her sharing all that experience. And he's given us so many little stories and all. And so we built up a small portfolio. We never held more than 10 houses. That was so Sharon could cover property management on all of them. We did it ourselves. Of course, we had contractors to do all the other kind of work. So we had built it up, had about almost 10 at the point we were starting to say, okay, can we expand? Can we scale up? That was about 2011, 2012. We really wanted to scale up. But in 2013, the appreciation in Texas used to be boring. Back when we started in the mid 2000s, you'd be lucky if you had 4 or 5% appreciation. That was high in Texas. But about 2012, 2013, it was up in double digits. So we were starting to be challenged by the pricing on getting more houses, because you put a house on the market, it would go above the ask all the time. And for single family, you have to stick to a formula. Most people have a formula of here's the percentage discount I have to get to be able to financially do this and make it profitable. And so we were getting challenged. And finally I said, maybe it's time to put it all under one roof. We need to think about that apartment thing that we had mentioned years back. And so it was a little exercise in manifestation. About a month later, we got an email. And this guy said, hey, here's an event you might be interested in. Somebody we knew that was, he ran a RIA over in the mid-cities of Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he said, you might want to go to this. And it was a free weekend called Rat Race to Retirement. And all it was based on multifamily, doing multifamily. So we jumped in that. That's the Brad's Sumrock group. So it's called Brad Sumrock. We got in that mentorship group, and we've been there ever since.
So you're a Sumrocker.
Yes, we're a rocker, whatever, Sumrocker. We've been in since 2015. He's not perfect. Nobody out there is. But it's been a perfect environment to learn and to really grasp and have coaches that help you. It's not that different in Race Masters. You have access to people that help you. And we've done very, very well. Once we proved it worked and started getting paychecks in the mail and getting checks in the mail, and actually we don't do that anymore. It all goes straight into the accounts. We use ACHs. We don't actually carry the check to the mail anymore, to the bank anymore. But once we saw that, the next rent house that somebody moved out of, we said, why don't we just sell this and put all our money here? We proved it was working. We liked it. And that's what we gradually did. Sold the last house in 2019. And at that point, and it was sort of funny, the last house we sold was the first one we bought in 2005. It was the last one to go. And we sold it, took that money out of there and reinvested in the multifamily space. Because at that point, that's the scaling we wanted. You don't have to property manage your individual houses anymore. You bring in, everything we've been in is 80, 90 units or more. So you're going to bring in professional property management. You don't have to do that. You just manage it. So that's how we got here.
Dan, for a while you had your daughter, working on these kind of burr strategies or single family homes that you were buying and renting out, and then you started transitioning into LPing and multifamily deals. Was she involved in that part as well, and kind of underwriting your multifamily, or?
Yeah, we started in 15. That was her. When we started 15, she was away at her freshman year in college. So she wasn't here year round, but she came home some in summers and all of that. She ended up having 5 internships while she was in college. So she wasn't here for a whole summer most of the time, but she'd help with stuff, do stuff when she could. And there was one point when she graduated in 2018, she did have a bit of an open space there in the summer before she got a job in the fall. And during that time, I had her at one point, she would go do the initial underwriting of deals, of apartments for me. And she started learning how that worked. And she would do that for me. So then she was sort of queue me up for the first pass, get all the data in the analysis, everything set up, take her cut at some stuff. And then I could go home. It made me able to do it faster and all. So during that one summer, she was doing that. I'll tell you, I'll give you the best story with her in real estate was, and this is when you know your kids are getting something, and you love it when a parent, you can say that. We had a special event in 2018, a once a year event that Brad Sumrock and that group started, and they had Grant Cardone at the first one. She went to that. It was good. She enjoyed. I'll tell you, when she sat there on day 3 or 4, she's still writing notes like crazy when everybody else is about brain dead, and just right on top of it. But then a year later in 2019, I had to call her up. I called her up and said, Nora, guess who's coming this year to this event? And she said, I don't know. Robert Kiyosaki? I said, yes, he's coming. And she said, well, I want to go. And I'm like, well, you hadn't even read any of his books. I've read some books, but she hadn't read anything. She said, Dad, you've been telling me since I was 6 that our house is not an asset. And I was like, well, okay. And she said, Dad, I'll buy my own air ticket. This is somebody right out of college that doesn't have a lot of money. She's going to buy her own air ticket. I said, okay, I'm going to do something I've never done before. We're going VIP to that event. We're going to be on the front row. We'll get to go have lunch with him and the other speakers too, but he was the highlight. And we'll go and there's a meet and greet and all that. We maybe get a picture made and all that stuff. He said, okay, I'll do that. She paid for her own ticket and we went first class VIP through the whole thing. But you want to know the coolest thing of all of it. Normally you get around Robert Kiyosaki, he likes people and you'll get a chance for that picture and all. Normally he only says one picture per group or family or couple or whatever, just one picture. When my daughter went up there with us, he broke his own rules and said he would take a picture with her by herself also, a second picture. And it's like,
got 2 pictures out of Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, it was classic. He just lights up when there are younger people involved that are trying to learn at an early age. He likes us being there too, but that's just special to him that young people are learning this stuff and all. So that was really one of the coolest experiences. And she went to that one and soaked it all up and did all that. And we are actually in the process right now, getting ready to send off paperwork. We're creating a joint LLC with her. And she's ready to start investing in multifamily. Now that'll be an LP investment, but she's going to start now at 28.
Well, kudos to you for starting that financial education for her to even be a Robert Kiyosaki fan when she was 6. That's a huge deal. Because, we say Robert Kiyosaki took a photo with her, but he did that because you guys helped her get engaged with what you're doing.
Yeah. So many parents, they have their own things they do and their kids aren't involved at all. And I have people in the Sumrock group that say, man, I wish I could get my kids involved. I know 1 or 2, I think it's maybe 2 in the entire Sumrock ecosystem that have their kids investing with them or investing in real estate and all. So several of them say, I wish I could get I've heard many say that. I wish I could get my kids involved. with her, part of it's her. She was that one that never wanted to be left behind. She wanted to be in the middle of everything. She wanted to understand things. She wanted to go places. When she was even 3 years old, we could drive down a street and there'd be some house that got repainted or something changed or a new sign got put up. And she'd say, hey, look at that sign. Hey, that's different. Hey, they changed that. And Sharon and I look at each other and said, we didn't even notice that. And she picks up on details and she has passion on things. And it just, part of it, I'll say, is I think worked for her is she was a Montessori kid. She came up in Montessori education. It's not for everybody. It's not the answer for every kid's education. But if someone has curiosity and wants to sort of be an explorer type and wants to find things out, it set her in the right path from the beginning. And we reinforced it over and over. And let me ask you one question. When we had to change schools for middle school time in 7th grade, which kid would ask their parent saying, I want to go to school where they can teach Latin in 7th grade? I don't know that ever happened. So part of it's Sharon and I have an agreement. At times we say, well, she got that from you, or no, she got it from you. But sometimes we just say, that's just Nora. That's just her. And so I think we influenced it in a lot of ways, and we were always here to support and still are today. I don't talk with her every day, but very regularly. And it just worked out over time. It evolved. And she's that kid that has always surprised me. We paid to send her to private college, a private school. But I've told her before, I don't regret a single penny. It was worth every penny to help send you there because I know you sucked everything out of that place you could get. She'd be that kid that, the professor comes in and says, hey, they teach about 45 minutes. Say, I've covered everything I want today. I'll let you go 15 minutes early unless someone has a question. She'd be the kid that would have a question. She wanted to get everything she could. So I think part of that was a natural curiosity she had from birth.
So what's the stickiest real estate transaction that she saw you do that you've been involved with? Single family, multifamily, whatever. What's the worst real estate experience you've had?
The worst experience we had would go back single family, and it was at a house that Sharon thought we should have never bought.
She reminded you of, I'm sure.
Yeah, and she never let me forget that. And it's like she never wanted to go to that house. In fact, it wasn't too far from where I work at Bell Helicopter. So if it was time to show it or something, she'd tell me to go meet people there, and I'd have to deal with a bit where at least 50% of the time they don't show up and all that nonsense. And also, in fact, later there was an instance. I remember this with Nora. There, we were looking at a house later on, and it was a house that I sort of saw some possibilities, and Sharon didn't like it and all. And I just turned, her daughter was probably 11 or 12 by then. I just turned to her one point and said, well, my marriage is more important than buying this house and all. But that was a big challenging one. The first house we bought gave us a big challenge one time that just really, it was unbelievable. We had a tenant that wasn't paying. And we're trying to get paid up and all that. And then I get a call one day. And it's like, the bathroom is backed up and clogged up. I've had to move over to somebody else's place. So I get in the car and I say, I got to go see what's going on down here. It's a Sunday. I go drive down there and walk in the bathroom. The commode is literally sitting in the bathtub. I'm like, what the heck are these people doing? Come on. They had pulled it up from the floor and set it in the bathtub. And there was water laying around, I guess with sewage at some point. And had all this problem and everything. And we had to work through that. We had to bring in people and do some remediation and do all kinds of stuff to get it straightened out. At the end of the day, one of the kids had put a rag down the toilet and blocked up the plumbing. That happens. That caused us a lot of pain and a little money. And that was a really bad situation. And the person that was in there eventually got evicted. And we finally got past it and got somebody better in there. But we never really went down in flames per se. We were in the game and we could do something to work through the problems, but you just don't know what's going to pop up, and you can't.
So these are, I mean, these problems seem, I mean, in regards to like everything you're sharing, it sounds like you've got a lot of wins, and I love hearing that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't even Sharon can. I don't know if she'll say this openly in public, but even on that one house she never wanted me to buy, we made some pretty good money when we sold it, and everything was profitable. We didn't lose our shirt on anything. One of the secrets was, if it was on the margins and we had doubts about it, we just walked away. We just didn't pursue it. And we had our method together. When we did single families, we bought HUDs for a while, got some good deals on HUDs. And I'd go look at it first. Well, actually, I didn't go look at it. I got a spreadsheet from a broker that specialized in HUDs. I would look at where it was, look at it in Google, and say, hey, this is worth a bid, and throw a bid. This is after I figured out how it worked. Throw a bid at it. And in a day or two, if you get it or you don't. When you get it, you have 3 days to sign a contract and put money down. So I'm like, when I figured that out, I said, I'm not going to go driving around deciding which ones to bid on. I will look online at pictures and figure out what part of town it's in and just shoot numbers out there. And when I get one, I'll look at it. So I'd go look at it. I'd come in, I'd go foundations, roof, HVAC, look for any significant water leaks. And that was it. That's all I look at. And if it passed that test, and with the comps we had from the broker, if it looked like it could be a deal, then I'd bid on it. And then then I would decide we'd move on and do a contract on it. I would just bid on it without even seeing it. But then what would happen, and the broker saw us do this one time. He'd been out there with Sharon at once. And he asked, is she always like this? I said, oh, yeah, it's even worse sometimes. But I would go out and check those things that I told you about. And if past that, then Sharon would go out. I would usually have half a dozen things on the front sheet of a tablet. That's all I would be caring about. When she came out of there, she usually had 10, 12 pages of notes of everything she could find that was wrong with it. And then we had a complete picture. And then we could know, do we go forward, do we not? And so the teamwork we did, looking at each other's strength, really helped us, where when we bought a house, we were sure that we would survive it. We're not going to lose a ton of money. And as I told her many times, I can guarantee you every house we buy, about year and a half or 2 years in, we'll find something that needs to be fixed. It costs $2,000 or $3,000 or so. I said, I don't care about the thousands. I just don't want to make the tens of thousands of dollar mistakes. And we didn't. And we've been very lucky there. But it was also the discipline we put to it.
Yeah, it sounds. You say lucky. It sounds like it was very structured. It sounds like it started even structured. Is that a lot of people kind of
took us a while to evolve to that, but we knew our numbers and we walked away from a lot of houses. I go find cracks in the foundation. No, move. I mean that would destroy our margin right there, or even replacing a whole roof could destroy our margin. And we just made sure we maintained the margin, and that was great. Now, multifamily is a little different. You got to look at the analysis, look at where it is, go drive by, look at the area. But you know what? A lot of the things you did in single family mattered in multifamily too. Is it in a good neighborhood? Is it easy to get to? Is it near shopping? The old location applies no matter what real estate you're getting. And some of that same stuff transfers. How you calculate it and value it and all of that's totally different because you're evaluating a business. When you buy an apartment, you're buying a business. It's not just buying a house. And that's a key headset you have to have.
And, with all this stuff, it sounds like you're so structured on it, and I really, what we love to find on the show are a lot of the challenges that people have overcome, both in like kind of the fatherhood space and the business space. But it sounds like everything's been so structured. Do you have any big challenges that you said, hey, we had to overcome this mindset. We had to figure out how to work through this. Do you have any stories that are, hey, looked like really despair for a while, but we pulled up?
I think the biggest thing for us is just the last 2 or 3 years, we've been all in we're working on being a GP. And we put together some people we'll work with as a team, and we go through. And what we've done is just really put a different kind of structure in the way we do the apartments and how we analyze them, how we go about the data. There was one deal it's 2 years ago now. We didn't get that one, but it was in a part of the area. It's a funny thing. It was in the same area where that gorilla mask occurred, that same town. But because we had a rent house there, we knew the area. And I got a notice coming soon on a particular property, on several properties. One of them was in that community. I said, we need to look at that one. And I didn't have the financials yet from the broker. I didn't have any data to work with. But I said, I know this area. So I'm going out, I'm working and figuring out what all the comps are before he ever even releases the deal. So I go in and I structure all that. I put I know here are the comps that are closest and the best match for this. I'll go through a process now where I'll go look online first, see what their rents are, see what I can dig out of that. There's so much online today, and dig all that out of it. Then we may actually call them before we go by. And then eventually we'll go actually tour them, talk with them face to face, do all of that. We went through that whole process before we had the info to even set up a tour. So we had a way to jump on that and not wait and just have to rely on brokers. And we've sort of evolved in our methodology. It's we go through several passes and we just peel the onion back layer by layer and get it down to, this will go. And then it's just a matter of hitting the right deal at the right time. So that success will come.
And now that we're in 2024, how's the process going this year? I mean, you hear about transaction volume being down. How is that affecting you guys?
We saw it was similar last year too, but I think it's a little more so this year. And I think the trickiest part right now is pricing. And like we just had one, we were going to turn in a offer yesterday. Sharon called the broker back and said, here's where we're sitting. We're going to put in this offer. And this particular property, they had a whisper price of $12.5 million, and some people came in wanting to pay $13 million for it. It is not worth $13 million. The people that offered that didn't know what they're doing. They were being too aggressive, and they don't have a clue what they're doing because there's problems in this pocket. And how can I say that? That property is 1.5 miles from our house where we live. I've seen that property many times, saying that'd be a good one to own someday, and it came up. The top property in that pocket, the best comp out there, we could not match, but it was sort of like, here's our ceiling. This is the best we could ever get. That owner went and toured that property and walked away from it and said, no, pass. He's been doing this decades. And so our number was right. We were down in the 10, 11 range. We were right. And the other people putting the money in. And here's where a little frustration comes in. What we've been getting out of our ecosystem, out of our network, is that this is coming. You're going to have properties where people run out of money. They have a bridge loan. They got to sell. That's going to start happening. And you're going to have a chance to get deals over the next couple of years. This is a great time. This was the first one I actually saw from the get-go that is exactly in that scenario. But it needed to sell for a little more discounted price than what that's the broker's job. They're trying to get the best price they can. I have nothing against them. Do your job, I'll do mine. So we were coming in too low. So Sharon talked to the broker, and he said, well, you're not going to make best and final with that. So I said, okay, we're not going to put in then. And guess what he said? I appreciate you valuing my time. He didn't want to look at another offer that wasn't going to be competitive. And guess how we heard about this in the first place? We had a call from not the broker himself, but one of his underlings. Gave us a call because we'd been in best and finals last year. I don't know how they get that list, but they had it. And they sent us the info before it went out public. And so, okay, we're going to do that broker a favor and not put it in if it's not competitive, because we want that relationship where they'll keep sending it to us a little early. Now, I'm not going to kid myself. Don't kid anybody. I'm not the only one they sent that out to. But you make a list where you could get it a little bit advanced, a little earlier before they email it out to the general public. So we try to keep leveraging that. But the biggest asset we have right now is just the discipline. So we didn't get these last 2 or 3. We just keep going. Just go.
I've got a bit of a feeling of just vindication in regards to where pricing is. In 21 and 22, we were getting smoked on every deal that was out there, and in the rearview mirror, I look back and I go, gosh, I'm so glad I wasn't, bidding, high number over high number. Cause that discipline you're mentioning was saying, hey, this is our number. We're not going to go up to that.
Yeah, I had a little room to play with it, but it wasn't $2 million window. I could have bumped that up probably $500,000 or so, something like that. I could have gotten a little more out of it, and I made sure there was room to go. You need to, but when it's $2 million off, in fact, one of our partners we're working with he's Italian. He's American citizen, but he's Italian, and he was over in Italy visiting his family. And he was texting me back and forth. Well, don't we need to go ahead and put in some offer? Something might happen. It might fall through. And I said, just chill out. Sharon got this information originally directly from the broker. She's talking with the broker. Why do you think we were getting this information early? It's because of her. She's the relational person. And that's her space. I can relate to people too, but not like she can. So that's what she does. She works the broker communication and looks at those possibilities to set us up to be able to get a deal and succeed at it. And that's why she's also the primary on money raising. She's dragging me by my feet. I'm starting to get in the game with LinkedIn and some other things to start doing what she's doing, but she's still primary. And she is our secret weapon. I'll tell you that much. Sharon is our secret weapon. She went to that top property that she was looking at, and she struck up a conversation with the property management for that property, who went to the same high school she did, just graduated a few years later, who's been in this industry for 20, 30 years, and she got all the scoop on all the properties in that little pocket. We got the scoop on what was really happening at the property that was for sale and what's really going on in the market. And I followed one of those cues when I was analyzing the rent rolls, and I looked at the highs on the rents, the current rents they were getting. All of them were 6 months ago. There's been a price drop. And Sharon went back and visited that PM one more time to confirm that. And they had dropped their prices to $100, $200 a door. And they were paying a month concessions to get people in. And whoever offered that high price did not know that. They did not dig that out. And so, and I'll put it that way. I'm not going to be cocky about anything. We're blessed. We've had we've had good luck too. But this is why we haven't been totally burned before in real estate, is we peel the onion back deep enough to try to avoid the big mistakes.
It's a good partnership you got there with your wife. Not a lot of people have that, especially in real estate.
It's great. And we just keep going and doing it. Our daughter, next thing we get, when we get one of these, she's going to be investing. In fact, she calls me up early last year and was saying, Dad, I've been looking at, and she tracks her money closer than we do. And she, as I've always said to my wife, said to Sharon, she's a lot freer with my money than she is her own. She is as frugal as they come. And she was like, Dad, I think I'll have a net worth of $75K by the end of the year. And I said, well, Nora, we're getting ready to invest in into a property and stuff. I think you'll hit 100. And I think it was about November. She hit 100K in her net worth last year. And I'll take that any day. She learned her stuff, and she probably does it even better than I do. So we are so happy to have her and proud of what she's done.
And how old were you guys when you first did your first house?
We would have been, that was in 2005. I was in my early 40s.
Okay.
I'm 66 now. So that's about right. So I was in my mid 40s or so, and a point when, and actually one time when I first went to the Boeing outfit, a guy there told me something once. He was an older guy. And he said, well, Dan, you come in, you want to climb the ladder, you want to do all this stuff. After a while, you're not going to want to do that, because when you hit your 40s, you're going to want to start paying more attention to your family. And And I think we paid attention the whole time, but he was right. He was right. When you hit 45 in your mid 40s, being there for your kids should be important to you. It should be one of the top priorities. And we've lived it that way. Not everybody does, but we did.
You had a very like clean, structured. It's like we get all these stories about all these things that just happen outside of our control and rolling with the punches. And Dan, I gotta commend you, man. It's like you just designed this life, and it like made this just structure of life that just happened. You just did it.
Yeah, I'll share with you a couple more things here. You know, we've just persisted. Why didn't we get a GP sooner? We were a personal student with Brad year one. Why didn't we get a GP sooner? There was a time in 2016, both of our mothers broke their shoulder within 1 week of each other. And then a little later on, Sharon's dad was slowing down, and he had issues. Mental, not mental, but physical issues. That got in the way. The other thing I didn't share with you is in 10th grade, Nora came down with some symptoms we couldn't explain. She was bombing tests left and right. She normally made high B's, low A's almost every time. We could count on it. She just bombed some tests, couldn't pass any of them. She was virtually flunking out a semester as a sophomore. And the doctors couldn't answer it. They tested her to death. They couldn't give us an answer. We kept searching. Finally, we went to the homeopathic route, went to the non-traditional doctors. And we finally found a guy, and turned out our daughter had Lyme's disease. That's where you get the tick bites, and it can affect you. She had the neurological form of it. It can mess with your mind. It can make it where you can't remember things, all this stuff. We had her under treatment for five years. She eventually finished that treatment in 6 and is what's considered a remission. Well, guess what happened in 2017? I'm sitting across the table from Sharon, and we're ordering at a favorite restaurant. Nora was with us too. She was home from college. And I was ordering a favorite restaurant, a dish that we normally share. And it comes up, and I turn to Sharon and say, "You want to split it? You want me to?" She couldn't say a word. Blank face. No communication. Zero. We were thinking, oh my God, what is this? Could this be stroke? Could it be what? And in fact, she was just blank, unresponsive. She didn't pass out, nothing. She's just sitting there with a blank stare. The paramedics get there, roll in, and then she comes right back out of it and just says, "What are these guys doing here?" And we're like, oh my God, what is this? They followed stroke protocol because that's what some of the symptoms were. Took her in. And as it turned out, in the long haul, we found out, in fact, our daughter did a lot of the research. Sharon had Lyme disease also. And sometimes it hides itself and it doesn't show up for years. Well, it came up, and part of what she was having was, they finally gave us a term for it. Complex partial seizure. In other words, your brain you're just not computing and conversing with anybody. She's been under treatment since that time. And, when that happened, that was the only focus I had. And I'll say that's really our key. It's focus. Focus on what's most important when it happens. And we focused on that. She's been in treatment since that time and is right on the verge of ending her treatment. Pretty soon, she will. And she didn't have the cognitive ability on it. You couldn't trust it for a while. So we couldn't proceed with GPs. But finally, we felt comfortable 2 years ago and saying, "Hey, you're better now. You're so much better." I mean, she amazes our partner when we go do tours. There was one property, that one I said I got the comps ahead of time. I just said to her, "Sharon, I see a couple of people on this rent roll. I think somebody may be getting assisted living here, or rental assistance." And she said, "Well, I'll ask." Yeah, ask the property manager when you're on time. She goes on and asks him, "Hey, do you have anybody with rental assistance going on?" She said, the guy turns to her and said, "Yeah, we have 21 of them." That wasn't on the rent roll, but it blew our partner away. Mariano was like, "How does she do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Just don't question it. Take it." And that's that's the way we are. We just keep focusing no matter what. We focus on our goals. We focus on, it doesn't always have to occur on the schedule that you hope for. And that's where we are. And you want the last one? I'll give you the last earthquake here.
All right. Yeah.
I have a condition that's degenerative, that I gradually strengthen my legs, my back, and muscles and all. I finally got to the point, early 22, had a little fall. I didn't break anything, but I got where I couldn't be stable anymore. I'm now in a wheelchair. I'm still going, and I ain't stopping. It's not going to stop me. I have been through my whole life. I knew I would end up here someday. I didn't know when, but I keep going. And I figure out how to do it, how to modify, how do you overcome it, get the help you need, and all. So we had a blast and went up to a mastermind event through Brad's group in Utah. That was in late January, and we were doing hiking trails and stuff like that. I couldn't go up the steep ones, but I went on the trails I could go on, and had a blast of a time. I remember one time going through the mountains in Grand Teton National Park, and I'm going up a trail that rises something like 1,500 feet in about a quarter mile. So I had to take breaks. I had to slow down. This is when I was younger. But then I hear somebody coming behind me, so I step aside. That guy's coming by me with a broken leg, with a cast on it, and he has a crutch, one crutch. He's hobbling up the trail, going up the trail, and I'm like, what the heck do I have to complain about? There's always somebody that's less fortunate than you or more fortunate than you. What are the chances that you have the best possible situation on the planet or the worst possible situation? Very low. Yeah. It's not the people around you. So
it's only one guy on either end, right?
Yeah. There's only two people in the worst and the best spots. We get all the other.
We hear a lot of stories on this podcast, and one thing that we love hearing is just how this has not affected you. This hasn't even come up on this podcast. We've been talking an hour, and you're going through the wins, you're going through the deals you bought, and here at the end, you're like, oh, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm not laughing in the sense that like this isn't even relevant to all of these things.
It's funny. Some of the masterminds, Sharon will go to him by herself, and there's one guy that we've wanted to partner with. He's somebody you got to really just drip till he gets it. But he's more experienced than we are. We've wanted to partner with him and help him on a deal and all his stuff. After he had seen me in a wheelchair, first time the group saw me was last December. No, it was December before. Anyway, he keeps asking, well, how does Dan do the comps? How does he shop the comps? And Sharon told him several times, well, I shop the comps. He doesn't shop the comps. He's the one there mulling over all these calculations and doing them 15 times to make sure we're right. And he kept doing it. One time he asked her again, and one of the other members of Some Rock Group comes walking by, and it was another guy named Dan. He said, Dan, what do you think? Sharon does them. And it's like he had something in his mind that says, how can Dan do this whole business? It's real simple. This is a team sport. If you're doing it all by yourself, you're taking the maximum risk, the most difficult path. We know one guy we've invested with in the past is a very good operator that's expanded over the years. But he runs his own operation. He created his own company. So he hires the people. It's his team. He has a team. It's still a team sport. But he's had several capital calls, and he's having real issues right now. And to be that way, if you're the sole proprietor, you're the only one and all that, that's a lot more risky than if you bring in partners and work with other people. And that's what we do. If you don't have the right people, go find them. To do it yourself, you don't go do this stuff yourself. You get the help you need from where you can get it.
I love the mindset stuff. On so many of these calls, we talk to guys who overcome things, but we don't generally have these people as guests, but you see so many people who just don't allow a challenge to really be something that stops them from achieving. And it's such a mindset shift for those of us who recognize that success doesn't pay attention to that crap.
Yeah, they don't, and they just want to get the big wins in a hurry and go fast, and a lot of times that is more risky. It can end in disaster, like we've seen some go that path. They were so busy trying to win all the deals, they didn't really have their team set up and their property management right and the other things to sustain it. And you got to do the whole thing. And more heads, more minds is stronger than one.
So Dan, what do you recommend to guys who, any listeners, dads, who are like, hey, I want to get into real estate and they don't know where to start? What do you recommend?
Number one, start. Really start. And there's so many ways to do it. I had a good friend of mine a number of years ago. We learned, when we were still doing single family, we learned how to do private lending, where an individual would be our bank. It made our process so clean then, because guess what? When you did it that way, they treated it like HUD would treat it like a cash transaction. They didn't know where the money's come from. It's not coming from a formal bank. And I go in and he was convinced, mainly because his next door neighbor, which I knew very well as well over the years, had come in, and the next door neighbor had been in banking before and said, this is a good thing. I want to make 8%. And he went along because his friend did. And I go back to his house. And this is what I did when we have private lenders for single family. I would go by their house and hand them a check every month for interest. And I went back the next month and gave it to him. He said, man, I've talked to people who work. A lot of people want to do this stuff. And a lot of people have real estate. I think I want to do what you're doing. And I said, all right, Dave, here's what I'm recommending. I can give you names of a couple of real estate groups that you can go start learning. And it doesn't cost a ton of money. They have events. They have Saturday weekend things. It's not real expensive, but you learn first. I said, promise me you won't go buy anything for at least 6 months and start learning. I come back a month later, he'd already bought a duplex. He didn't listen to any advice I ever gave him. And he'd been a complete disaster. He got into houses. He bought a house from a guy that had done a subject to on it. He didn't know it. And it wasn't even in his name. And he bought this house from this guy. And he found, it's like about a year or two after he started, he calls me up one time and said, how do I tell if I'm on the property? If I'm really, where can I find the owner of a property?
On title versus unsecured debt or something like that?
Go to the county tax assessor. It lists who's on the title. Go see who's on it. That was the first thing he said. Then I found out a little bit later, the guy that sold it to him died. And he thought it was done, but in the end, guess what? He got sued. The guy, I told you that it was actually once a real estate broker that he lost his license for a good reason. He did the subject to, but left the title in the original owner's name. He never had title. He sells it for $130,000 or something to my friend when he doesn't even have the title. My friend didn't have the sense to even know if he was on the title or not. He bought it.
Get a title report? He didn't have a title company?
I'm not sure what they did, how they did it. But anyway, at the end of the day, the original owner comes back to him, looks him up, and sues him and said, you need to give me $80,000 or I'm going to take my house back. I guess $80,000 was the equity he had in it or whatever. So and my friend had to fork over $80,000 to keep that house. It's like, he finally has found something he works with. He's doing mobile homes now. And he has some friend he's working with that they buy a mobile home, go put it on a half acre and sell it. And I think he can handle that part.
So same question. People just start, or should they start after 6 months?
Learn first.
Learn first.
Learn what the heck you're doing. And it's worth. I know the prices are higher now. They are. When we started,
It sounds like your friend learned a lot.
The hard way and a long time and lost a lot of money. You can learn the good way or the bad way.
It was tuition.
So Dan, in regards to guests who are listening to this, are you looking for investors? Do you want people to contact you?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
and I'm going to show them how we do business, and they're going to learn about it before we come to them saying, put $50,000 into this. I want them to know what they're doing.
So that's the answer. What do you recommend? Contact
Learn
Dan.
first. Find the places where you can learn. You don't have to spend all of your life savings. You have to be careful because there's a lot of people out there asking for money. But find some reputable places where you can start to learn. And they're around. The best place is the real estate organizations, the RIAs. You can find them in almost any city. And start learning what you're doing first. Have a coach, have someone that can help you along that way so you can learn how to do it. Because learning the other way is costly and painful.
People could also just give the money to you, right?
Well, I'll tell you this, what we do now, we're doing all syndications. If they're working through us, they're going to be a partner. They may be a limited partner. A limited partner doesn't make the decisions, doesn't find the deal, doesn't do all that stuff. They're still a part owner, and they will be treated as an owner if they're working with us. And they won't get to make all decisions, but they will be respected as an owner because they are a part owner. And here's why. I can't do it without them. We can't do this in syndications. We can't do this without our investors. Most of us, I don't know, there's a few people on the planet I know that can go slap down them $10 million and buy a property with cash. There's some people that can do that. It's not me. It's not many people you're going to meet.
Dan, how do guests get in contact with you?
We have a link. It's Excalibur Investments, LLC. And there's a link there we can get you.
Do you have an email?
I can give you an email. Let's see. I'll give you the main one there. It's Riddle, RIDDLEDSN, like David, Sam, Nancy. It's really Dan, Sharon, Nora, at verizon.net. And what we will do there is we'll give them a link or something that they can get to our website. We have a website, Excalibur investments.com. And that one has a lot of stuff on it. It has contact information you can fill out and all of that. I'll tell you what we'll do after Silver. I think I got your email here. I'll send you the rest of that contact so you have it.
And for everyone listening or watching, we'll have contacts for Dan on the website, therealestatedadspodcast.com, in the blog section. And for anyone who wants to connect with other dads in the real estate space, on that same website, realestatedadspodcast.com, there's a link to access our Slack channel. And there you can network with other dads, and we can get, if you have deals you want to present for investment, it's a place to network and also find some other guys to work with for exactly what Dan said, which is the team sport of real estate. So, Trevor, do you have anything you want to tie up here before we finish this up?
No, that was really good, Dan. Thanks for coming.
I'll give you one last piece there for somebody, another reference. If they're into Kiyosaki at all, read his Second Chances book. It's called Second Chances. That's one I like because it goes into more detail of how he got to where he thinks. But the whole gist of it is it's never too late. You got second chances. You can start from wherever you are. You don't have to do something magical to happen in your life before you can start real estate. You just start when you can. And when I say start, know what you're doing first. Get to know what you're doing.
This has been a great one. Dan. I've really enjoyed your engineering brain and your engineering structure. I know master scheduler, but you started as an engineer. And when I hear the way that you structure all this stuff, from your team efforts to your investing on margin to the locations you're picking, sounds super structured, and I love it. So thank you for being a guest.